Welcome back to Teacher Chat. I am your lovely host, Tyler Carter, here with my co-host, Dr. Todd Walker. How are you?
I'm well. I'm better because you're here.
Yeah, I was out the last one.
The last time that we were doing this, I was flying solo, and I think it went okay. But, when you're used to having a co-pilot, it's always better to have that person with you. So,
well, I heard it did well.
Okay. Well, and I've learned from your tutelage and watching you do this over the years that we've been doing it. So, it was a great episode, but I enjoy having you here. And certainly, we are today accompanied by some awesome guests.
We are. We have a really, I think, a great topic that our teachers are really going to enjoy, especially knowing that this is something that our superintendent, Dr. Chapman, and our board is really passionate about. And also along with our teachers and our administrators really passionate about when it comes to our students. And I want to you're the one who came up with the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you come probably with all of our ideas, but you're the one that came up with the idea.
Yeah. Well, not all of them, but, the goal of Teacher Chat in general is always to center teacher voice. And so we're always looking for different topics that we think are important to teachers, that are important to the field, to the profession of education. And so certainly for our district, math has surfaced as one of those critical topics, particularly the intermediate and middle grades, but we know math is critical K through 12. And so we have with us two awesome guests, Leilani Kane, who was one of our coaches, teachers on special assignment in academic services, and Dr. Tiffany Tynes who is also a teacher on special assignment. She's a regional coach. And I want to let both of you introduce yourself. I think for our listening audience and also our viewing audience, it's helpful for them to know a little bit about you. What's your history in terms of your context, your teaching history, and then how you got into the coaching role. So start with Leilani and then go to Dr. Tiffany.
Wow, this is year 31 for me in Columbus City Schools. All 31 years have been with Columbus City Schools. I started way back in 1993 teaching at the old Champion building. I want to say off of Poindexter and Law, but it wasn't exactly Poindexter. I've always taught middle school. 29 years of teaching middle school math. The 25 of the last 29 have been teaching at the 8th grade level, Algebra 1, and back in the day we called it pre-algebra, but now I guess we would say it was just Math 8. 2 years ago, the opportunity presented itself to leave the classroom situation and enter the curriculum office to give me an opportunity to help not only the students that I had been working with in my classroom, but to hopefully be impactful and help students across the district as well as teachers across the district. So taking that opportunity and that leap of faith has landed me here, and it has been a fantastic experience and a fantastic 2 years.
And for me, I started in August 2001, so my 23rd year within CCS, but I'm also a CCS grad. So I graduated from Mifflin High School, and so I am CCS. I trump your 31 years. But I started off at East Columbus, came as a 5th grade math teacher, and then the next 9 years I was a 4th grade MSLS, which at the time was a math science leadership specialist. So I still only taught mathematics, but also science. And then in 2010, I left the classroom for my first TOSA round, and I was a school improvement specialist. So I facilitated instructional rounds. I rolled out TBTs and BOTs. I helped to train CCS on that protocol. And then as a school improvement specialist, I was tapped to go to Wyland Park because they were being reconstituted. And they wanted to see if the practices that I was training teachers on were actually working practice at a school. And so again, a certain staff was hand-selected to come back into the classroom. So again, I was at Wyland Park as a 3rd grade math teacher. And then once again, been out for the past 5 years in another TOSA role position as a regional math specialist.
So, we have, we're in good hands in CCS with both of these leaders, and certainly they're not alone. Well, we have a team of folks that are thinking about this and teachers that are in the field as well. So, as a way to start off, a couple nights ago, I was at the Lincoln Theater at the Right to Read event, and it's a film that's all about literacy. LeVar Burton, many folks know him from reading Rainbow, or he was Kunta Kinte in Roots for others, right? You know, there's a lot of different reference points for LeVar Burton, but he's an executive producer, and the producer who we had a chance to interact with is actually a protagonist in the film, and it follows several families. And the thought is that sort of the presumption to the film is talking about literacy as a fundamental right, right? That reading and literacy as a civil right. And I'm just curious about how you think about math, right? Heard some people talk about numeracy, but I think broader, you know, just thinking about math education, right? Math learning, how that correlates in your mind to this idea of a civil right to learning, because that to me was compelling. I've heard that idea before. His example that he talked about was, imagine, you know, being in the Stone Age and not having a stone, being in the Bronze Age and not having any bronze, and we're in the Information Age, and not knowing how to read is commensurate to being in a situation where you didn't have stone in the Stone Age or bronze in the Bronze Age. So yeah, well, whoever wants to jump in, just curious your thoughts.
Well, I think first we need to reflect back on society. It is okay for you not to be mathematically sound, but it's not okay for you to be illiterate. And so I think somehow we have created this culture where it's okay to not be a quote-unquote math person. But the same thing with literacy, it is a right, to be mathematically sound. Math is all around us, and not only in the context of school, but think about the workforce, think about career pathways, think about just being able to balance your checkbook, so financial literacy. So in my opinion, I don't want to say math is even more important, but you need both, right? And able to be a successful citizen of society and to be able to leverage. I mean, I think math is about thinking, right? It's critical thinking. It is problem solving. It's inquiry. It is being able to see a different perspective other than your own. It's also being able to navigate unfamiliar spaces. So math is calculation. So I think there's so many aspects of math. Math is not just rote memorization. And again, I think there has been this narrative replayed over the years that math is just remembering procedures and recalculating facts, and math is beyond that. The world is mathematics.
I would agree. I would say mathematics education is a fundamental right for us, for our children. I guess if we want to talk statistically speaking, they say that Algebra 1 traditionally is known as the gatekeeper, right? And that it is because there is a little bit of research, well, not even a little bit, a lot of research that says students that typically are not successful in Algebra 1, and for Ohio specifically, that success in Algebra 1 isn't just passing the course, but it's also passing that OST test. When that doesn't happen, there's a 1 in 5 chance of students graduating from high school. So when we think about opportunities that then are available for our children as they progress through their high school years, and then look at opportunities and choices that are available to them, that math foundation academically is critical to being able to make those choices and make those decisions that are best for them. But even in general, as Dr. Tynes Curry said, is making sure that our kids are also able to process. Last year, we were doing a workshop with OSU through STEAM Rising Partnership, and we were speaking with several corporations, and we continued to ask, what types of things should our teachers be teaching students? What kinds of things can we tell them? This is how you become successful when you're in the job market. Every single business that we spoke to said, we'll train them, we'll take care of that, but we need them to have those soft skills such as collaboration and communication and problem solving, and all of those things are inherently located in mathematics instruction. It teaches those other skills. It teaches you how to problem solve and approach things from different angles and different perspectives, and that knowledge in and of itself is something that every single student needs to leave CCS possessing.
When I think about looking at what our new math goal is, I'm kind of going to put you on the spot here for a second, Dr. Walker.
Yes.
So for those that are listening and also that are also watching us as well, for those who may not know why we've introduced a new math goal, what that new math goal is, can you talk a little bit about that? How do we get to this point to where we needed a new math goal?
So, I mean, I think, broadly, mathematics has been an area where we've seen our students struggle for a while. I mean, this is not a new challenge. I think what amplified the need was COVID. When we were remote, certainly nationally, there was a significant dip across all subject areas. But typically, when you look at the data in most every place, the hardest hit was taken in math. And specifically in those intermediate grades, which are 4th and 5th grade, middle school grades 6, 7, and 8, which prepare you for Algebra 1. And so, what Columbus, not unlike other cities, other districts, has been slower to recover than we would have liked. We wisely, I think, made a significant investment in early literacy, and that was sort of mid-pandemic, so that was an interesting adoption of curriculum. But I think because we were dealing with so much, we hadn't made a similar we hadn't called similar attention to what was going on with math. And so, to your question, I think, myself, certainly Dr. Chapman, Dr. Brown, who's our chief of strategic performance, and others, realized that we've got to do something. Our board was certainly interested in leaning in. We have monitoring sessions, so they see the data and they see what's going on. And so it became critical for us to really lean in and say, okay, what can we do to accelerate student learning in mathematics? Mm-hmm. And so that's where it came from. The goal is a 7th grade math goal, and it has interim measures that reach into elementary school, the later part of elementary school, which is 4th, 5th, and then 6th grade, which starts middle school. And so that is what we're chasing. Specifically in 7th grade, our proficiency rating was around 15%, and so that's not acceptable for us. We know that doesn't represent the best that our students have to offer, and that it doesn't represent what they can achieve. And so, that became the impetus for us to say, hey, let's look at where we have pockets of excellence. We have these fantastic teachers, obviously, right? There are 2 that are sitting with us. How can we look at what they're doing, what others are doing? Because when you look at the data across the system, you see that there are some people who are far outperforming, expectations, and even in some of the most challenging, quote unquote, challenging situations, right? And so, what are teachers that are similarly situated but getting drastically different results doing different? And so that has become our pursuit. That has become much of the work of our district math team, of which these 2 ladies who are sitting with us are part of the leadership of that team.
What were you in the classroom during COVID? Mm-hmm. What were you seeing?
I guess the easiest way to sum it up was, I think COVID and the pandemic taught us that there really is no substitute for classroom interaction, and interaction, face-to-face interaction with peers and with instructors and teachers, and just that whole community of learning. Independent study, independent learning may work, and it does work for some children, but for the majority of our students, they need that interaction. They need interaction with their peers, they need interactions with their teachers, they need to communicate and talk about their thought processes. And that's where the gap started to widen. We were starting to put some pieces together as a district to make sure that we were addressing learning gaps prior to the shutdown, and when we actually did have our shutdown and we were dealing with virtual teaching, it exacerbated. And it got to a situation where, while we did the best that we could and made sure that we were still there and providing instruction and support for our students, that missing piece of having interaction and collaboration and the discourse and just dealing with each other on a daily basis, it was a setback that I don't think most of us realized what it was really going to do to a learning environment. And I think that's probably most of what it is trying to get back that atmosphere. Even when we returned back to the classroom, it was still trying to make sure that we were separate and made for safety reasons, of course, absolutely. But now making sure that we're getting back into those collaborative group situations and getting back into the business of allowing our kids and encouraging our children to communicate with each other, communicating with teachers, and really dig into those skills that promote that type of success is the focus that we're trying to work with and encourage our teachers to get back into.
Yeah. And with both of you being out in the classroom but still doing impactful work for our students and for our teachers, how does that kind of, I guess, with not being face-to-face with our students, but still being that support for our teachers, being an ear for them, hearing what it is that they need, how have you guys kind of worked to say, okay, we have our new math goal, this is how we need to achieve it? Or is it something that is even, you see, sustainable to achieve? Because I think, it's in 2028, we're going to be at 23%. Is that something that we can achieve?
Yes. I support Region 4. And so after the math board goal was released, I did a current reality for all of our Region 4 schools, elementary, middle, and high. And I pretty much said, here's where you are at in relationship to the actual Board of Education goal. And our high schools have pretty much surpassed or are only 1 or 2 percentage points away. So it's definitely a clear-cut reality within Region 4. But do you mind if I go back to lift something here? Okay, so in regards to math across the board. So I also I represented CCS for the Higher Department of Education on their K-12 math advisory team. And as a result of the pandemic, looking at the research from Future Forward, which is ODE strategic plan to address literacy and mathematics in regards to the learning loss. But what I find, so I'm in the spaces with superintendents, math curriculum directors, higher ed, and so forth, and everyone has the same story. However, this is ODE's first time addressing mathematics, right? So even though there has been a need for many years, the focus has always been on literacy. And so I think the pandemic has brought to the attention of not only at the local context, but the larger state issue that we, the state, must lead the initiative around mathematics because it hasn't been done before, not even by the state. So I kind of want to lift that. So I do believe that CCS were forward thinking by creating this math board goal, but also to construct a district leadership team for shared leadership and partnership around what does this look like. And so we're leveraging the voices of not only chiefs and area soups, but also teachers on special assignment. And I also hope, we also have special ed, so we need EL, but I would love to center also students' voices because they are the ones who are actually engaging every single day in mathematics. And so I think we also need to look at our community partners in higher ed. How can we collectively work together to create this plan and this vision around mathematics that has never been done before, and again, not even at the state level. So I truly believe CCS has a way to lead this work around mathematics.
Yeah.
And you know, we have led, right? I mean, even with literacy, early literacy, in the science of reading, we were an early adopter, you know, where you know, there were a lot of folks still struggling with, you know, do we stick with balanced literacy or do we go with science reading? And so our district took an early stance in our state to say, no, this is the right way to go. This is what the research is saying. So, I'm curious along those lines. We talk about the science of reading, right? Most of the folks listening are teachers, but there's some other folks who are listening who aren't teachers. And so is there a science of mathematics education? Where have we gone astray as it relates to teaching and learning for not only our youngest learners, but our middle-aged learners, our high school learners, as it relates to math? Certainly as it relates to literacy, we know that much of the challenge came from the fact that we weren't teaching about it in the right way, right? And that kids need to have a solid foundation in phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary, all of the pieces that make up the floor of a solid, reading education, learning to read. Talk to me, though, I'm curious about your thoughts, your experience as it relates to mathematics instruction in this space.
It is interesting that just about everyone, adults, just about every adult that would describe themselves as "I'm not a math person" went through the same mathematics education for the most part that everyone else has. We all took the same courses. We all went through our elementary through high school and did basically the same things, and yet we still have a faction of society, a large faction of society, that would say that I'm still not a math person or that math isn't my thing. And I think where we've gone wrong, if we want to say that anything has been wrong, is that we have focused so much on procedural instruction, and procedural instruction will only get you so far. We haven't developed that math understanding. We haven't developed the why things work the way they do. And because we haven't really focused on why things work the way they work, and why these procedures work in a larger scheme of things mathematically, we've kind of stunted the thought process of how all of these different pieces of mathematics fit together. So because we haven't necessarily focused on making those larger connections and really understanding the why behind those procedures so that we can develop that true mathematical understanding, I think that's why we end up with adults who say, math really isn't my thing. Because for most of them, if you would give them a math problem, a basic math problem, you could probably work through it, but where they struggle is because they don't remember the specific procedure that they were taught. And that's one of the things that we are trying to focus on with our new math initiative, is making sure that we get back into explaining those whys and having children work through those thought processes and developing that foundational understanding so that we can continue to build from that basic understanding and continue to apply those same skill sets to other levels.
And I'm going to go back to with the whole construct of literacy. Most teachers, elementary in respects, they want to become a teacher because they love books. They love literacy, right? It's not because of mathematics. But even think about our higher ed programming. There may be one or two math courses that you have to take, and they're mostly elementary level unless you are secondary and you're majoring in mathematics. Other than that, your entire educational pathway is centered around literacy. And so when you become a teacher, most elementary teachers are reading teachers. And most teachers teach math in the same format that math was taught to them, which is pretty much, as I kind of highlighted, rote memorization, regurgitation of facts, not really focused on the outcome. I mean, focused on the outcome, but not on the process. It's all about the process. And so even now, how many of our teachers truly focus on student thinking? Asking those questions at a deep enough way so that the student is able to make sense of their way of thinking. Another pushback, I think, with our teachers, they want one approach to solve the problem. And we realize that's not how math is. Math is meant to be flexible. And as long as you can have your own roadmap to get to the end result and it works every single time, it should be appreciated. But I think many teachers are uncomfortable. If I don't understand your way of thinking, how am I able to help you because I don't understand what you just did, right? So how do we change the atmosphere And not only, I'm not speaking to the students, but to the teachers, right? How can you be open enough to realize your job is not to teach the math? Your job is to create a space where students are involved in an inquiry-based type of environment, and you're walking around, you're asking questions about their thinking. Can you tell me more? Will this work here? So the risk-taking environment. People are uncomfortable to make a mistake, and especially in mathematics. And most kids who are not math or doers of math, they're quiet, right? If I just do what I'm supposed to do, I'm not going to be called on. And the kids who get it, the way the teacher presents it, they raise their hand, they are engaged, and the teacher's calling the same student over and over again. But that's not mathematics. The end goal is not a correct answer. The end goal is connecting back to what Leilani stated. It is the process. It is, we have one problem, but the four of us took a different roadmap to get to that same end result, and guess what? It works. Yeah. Right? So how do we embrace and we honor and we validate our students and the assets that they bring into our classrooms, right? And so again, shifting from the right answer to shifting on how can I build upon what you just presented and make it public for all.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. How do I make connections from each other's thinking and so forth?
Yeah, because I want to hit on what you said, because I thought was so great and interesting at the same time, because I was bringing a little bit of context. I was at a book club. I have a book club with my friends. So we had a book club meeting.
You don't have a math club?
No. I was going to say, like, most people say they're not math people. I was like, stuff in journalism. They were talking, some of them have like fourth graders, one has an eighth grader, and they were talking about the homework. And all these women were like, yeah, I cannot do that at all. I supervise, I do not do homework. My husband does it, and it made me think of when I was same age. My dad was the one who helped me with math because my mom was not. My dad was into carpentry and construction, so he used it in his everyday life. So he was the one who, he couldn't help me with anything else much, but that's his. He was like, I got that subject. I can do that subject up until we got to high school, but he could do that subject.
Real world context.
Yes.
Right.
And so, like you said, the process, but his process would be different of how his same answer got to the answer. Okay, let me see your homework. Why did we get a D on this? It's the same answer. Well, I didn't do the process. I didn't. So how do we, as we say, like our teachers, how do we be flexible with that, but also with our parents, because a lot of us did learn differently. Right. And my sister talked about that. My brother's an accountant, so he was the one who helps my niece with math homework. My sister, psychologist. Like, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I can help you with your brain, but I cannot help you with this. Yeah. How do we also extend that to our parents as well? Because the kids may get it in the classroom at the moment, but when they come home,
the parents are going to show them how they did it. And the issue is, and I know you're about to speak 1 second, we have to do a better job of educating our parents, but also with our teachers communicating the actual expectations of the standard. Like, I know there are many standards in fourth grade. You don't use the traditional algorithm. It's about strategies. When we were in school, we didn't do strategies. You did the procedure, and that was it. Yeah. But now the focus is on the strategy and how students are able to apply and transfer that strategy, foundational, to apply it later as they get to the more rigorous mathematics. But the issue is, and I'm going to use myself being open and transparent, no judgment. So in high school, I was in pre-calc, and back then it was called the proficiency test, and I didn't pass it. And my teachers were floored. Number 6 in my class, I'm in pre-calc, and I could not pass this basic test. I was memorizing, so you show me in the moment, I got you, right? I'm good. Ask me 6, 7 months later, I have no clue as to what I did. And so my mentor had a retired teacher, worked with me for 2 hours, and made the connections for me. I'm like, oh, took the test, passed it. I was fine, right? I did not become a better consumer of mathematics until I began teaching math. And even now, I am a person who, I do have math anxiety when it comes to the higher math because I don't remember half of it, right? I had to reteach myself. And so I'm a true believer. We have to teach students the why. How are the numbers communicating with each other? Because it's not for this moment in time. It's to make those connections as they progress to harder mathematics. Mm-hmm. And if parents understand that, we ask parents to solve a problem and say, explain to me why this worked. They can't tell you. Mm-hmm. And that right there is the aha. We want your baby to be able to explain what is taking place so they can see the patterns and the correlation to the next mathematical topic they may be presented with, excuse me.
And I think sometimes just reframing how to help your child with their math homework could be beneficial. Asking parents to not necessarily intervene and try and help your child solve it, but to ask your child, so when you ask them, so what did we learn today? We learned multiplication or whatever the topic may be. And then if the parent just says, so just show me what it is that you did today and let me see it. Mm-hmm. And then when the child starts to struggle or when the child forgets what the next step is or the next part of the explanation is, instead of perhaps a parent going in and trying to intervene and say, well, let me show you how you did it so we can finish the problem, maybe the next best answer is, it sounds like you didn't really get a good understanding of what you did today. Mm-hmm. So let's think of some questions that you can ask tomorrow when you go back into the classroom, and maybe helping their child write down some questions and things that didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And that way parents aren't necessarily feeling like it's their burden to make sure that their child knows how to do mathematics, because their child will definitely learn how to do the mathematics. It's just that communication gap, right? For most of us, the way we learned and the way we remember doing things. And trying to remember to tell everyone we're not doing new math. It is absolutely not new math. We are not. We're just trying to build that understanding before we get to that procedural practice, and helping children to be able to put into words what their questions are, what they didn't understand, pieces that they missed when they bring home those assignments, may be even more beneficial than helping them actually answer that specific homework problem or question.
Mm-hmm. I think I was going to commiserate with you a little bit earlier because I was that parent. I mean, my kids are 22 and 20, but I can remember like when they were in 4th and 5th grade thinking like, what are they teaching? Because I was the, kid who memorized all the facts. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of my most vivid memories of school is doing my multiplication and division facts. Mm-hmm. And I learned the algorithms, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily have the conceptual understanding. And it hasn't been until my adult life as an educator, and I was an English teacher, but as an educator, I've had to sort of learn and be reflective about, okay, like it is about, like, what is the concept underneath that? And I think part of it is just giving people the permission to be learners. Mm-hmm. From a central office standpoint, what we're endeavoring to do is to create the enabling conditions across the system so that the high leverage practices are the easiest thing to do. But we need to give people permission to unlearn, right? Yeah. And then to relearn. Mm-hmm. And, I think that speaks not just to our practitioners, but also to our parents. Like, it's okay to not know. It's not okay to stay there, but it's okay to start there. Mm-hmm. And I think that is freeing, right? Both for parents and for teachers, because what it says is, okay, I can grow from here. I can learn from here, and I think it also gives students the permission to take risks. Mm-hmm. Because we all know as adults that you fail at many more things than you succeed at. Mm-hmm. And so math is just an example of how, hey, look, it's okay to not get something right and then go back and say, okay. And there are also multiple pathways to get to a right answer. There's not just one right answer. So. For me, this has been therapeutic, so I want to thank all of you for I reflected that. Because it was trying. I mean, my kids would be like, Dad, it's terrible. And, as an educator, you're like, we're staying here. It's 2 hours, So, yes, it's, unfortunately, I didn't hear this, 10 years ago when I probably needed it. But hopefully it's helpful for some other folks. Yeah.
And just to lift one more thing, if we can learn to create spaces for our students to realize it's okay for me to make a mistake.
Yes.
But it's also okay for me, my voice to be validated in this space, even if I don't have the correct answer, right? And so one thing that I really want to shift away from teachers calling on only the students to have the right answer. We want to lift the voices of all students in this space so they know I am a doer of math, and I want to bring up the point of math identity. many times the teacher's identity, if they do not like math, well, you are teaching it without even realizing you're teaching that this is your math identity, and it becomes one of the students. So then, why is it that by second and third grade, kids already say, I'm not good at math? You've only been in school for 2 years, right? And there's research where a problem was given where they had kindergarten, first grade, and second grade students answer a problem. They said, well, who do you think answered it correctly out of all of them? And it was the kindergarten students. Why? Because they have not been in this system of someone telling them, you're not good at math. They're still open. They're still sponges. They're still flexible and playful, and they want to inquire. So we really have to think about our identity as educators of mathematics and the implications, the direct implications to our students' identity of being a mathematical person.
Yeah, I now tell people, you know, I am a math person, but I was an English teacher. So.
Yeah.
I'm still going to break out that calculator.
Before we wrap, Dr. Walker, can you talk about what we have to come next?
Yeah.
I know we have something exciting in store.
Yeah, so we have a math symposium that's coming up August 13th. I think I have the date right. And it's around math equity. And so I think, you know, I love this as a way to sort of close us out. You know, for us, what we know to be true is that from research, you know, from looking at the student outcomes, is that students who are black and brown, students who are second language learners, tend to be on the, you know, receive a disproportionate impact, right, in terms of whatever it is, right, and it's the same as it relates to math. And so, you know, it's interesting when you think about our context specifically in Central Ohio. We're now being called the Silicon Valley of the Midwest, and there's certainly an abundance of opportunity coming to our region. Right? We have Intel, we have Google, we have the Honda's expanding. And all of those are STEM-based fields. They're math. They require sort of a sound, you know, grounding in math. And so I think that there is a moral imperative for us to do this work. Because whether or not our students are able to participate in this opportunity is going to be dependent upon their fluency in mathematics and other subject areas, right? We have to do not just an adequate job, but an exemplary job of educating students. Their futures depend on it, and I would say our futures depend on it, because science tells us that IQ, talent, is not distributed based upon zip code. It's not distributed based upon ethnicity. It's not distributed based upon gender. But unfortunately, sometimes opportunity is. And so it is incumbent upon us as educators to ensure that we are creating equitable opportunities for all of our students. And that means starting with those folks who are on, who I used to say on the ground floor, and then Jay Sanchez said, no, I'm in the garden. So I would say on the garden floor, right? They are planting the seeds in the garden, making sure that they have the skills, the confidence, the competence to be able to do this work, do it well, and do it at high levels. And we know they can do it. We have examples and exemplars of folks, not only the two that are with us today, but others in our district who are doing it. And so this symposium that we're going to have, professional development, is an inflection point. It's a catalyst for us to begin to center math and to say that we must do this work, we will do this work, and we will not only do it, we will do it well. And so that's the sort of energy behind it, and yeah, I'm excited. I think that we have a real opportunity to impact students and not only their futures, but our futures, because we're connected. Education is not only a private good, right? We all are more well off. You know, we receive a personal benefit from being educated, but it's also a public good, right? We're all well off, or more well off, when each of us is more well educated. So these two ladies have been on the planning committee.
Nice.
They could give us some final thoughts, I think.
We're looking at August 13th as an immersive math experience for our 4th through 7th grade math teachers, a chance to let them experience learning progressions that will begin in those later elementary grades and into those middle school grades, to really see the connection that their students bring to the classroom with them. We're also going to make sure that our teachers are aware of the newest changes that we're dealing with as far as scope and sequencing, and also giving teachers a chance to extend their skill set, maybe to realize that you have an army of support behind you, and it isn't just perhaps you and another teacher that may be in the room with you, or maybe just your team of math teachers in your building. You have an entire district full of people, and by putting them in situations where they can work with 3 other grade levels, to understand that this business and this job that we have, that is of the utmost importance to make sure that our children are prepared when they graduate, is not just a you responsibility. It is everyone's responsibility. And understanding that as they work with teachers from 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade, and understand that it's everybody's responsibility. That goal that we focus on in CCS for a portrait of a graduate, and to really understand what it means to create children who are ready to graduate and enter the world, is a responsibility of every single one of us. And we are excited to offer an opportunity for our teachers to really understand that this is an us responsibility, and that no one grade level is saddled with that task, but it's all of us.
And just add on to that, it's not a 7th grade test, right? It starts in kindergarten, right? And so I think we have a beautiful opportunity for our teachers to collectively come together in a collaborative space to do math together. And I think it's going to be like the first of its kind. Typically, if you're a 7th grade teacher, you're in 7th grade, 8th grade, but we have a vertical alignment. So 4th grade through 7th grade at a table together, engaged in the same mathematics, but listening and learning from one another. So my lens, I may start, and then Leilani may say, oh, well, in middle school, here's the expectation. This is how this translates or build upon. So I also think it's an amazing opportunity as we continue with our PD series to disrupt antiquated practices. For so long, for math, it is, I do it, then we do it, and then you practice on your own. But we have to flip that on its head. It is you do it, right? Engage in problem solving. I want to know what you already know, and I'm going to build upon that. I'm not going to start with this mentality of I have to tell you or show you everything, because you already come with some skill sets, right? So I want to build upon that. So I'm going to give you the space to explore, to engage in a conversation with your peers. Oh, tell me about how you solve this problem. And then I am going to help orchestrate a discussion around your thinking. Again, not me showing you. I am lifting your expertise, right? And I'm honoring your voice in this space to showcase your mathematical brilliance. So that is what I am most excited about, is to be able to shift how mathematics instruction is being delivered to our kiddos.
Nice.
And I want to just add one piece to that, is that not only will our teachers be in the space, but so will our administrators.
Absolutely.
And we haven't talked a lot about our principals, our admin today, because this is teacher chat. But we do recognize that work is critically important. Dr. Corey D. Grubbs leads that work, and certainly Catherine Mosier, who's our deputy superintendent, is in that space together with us. But that collaboration is critical, right? It's important that our administrators are comfortable, just as our teachers are, of knowing sort of what to look for, how to support teachers, how to engage with them. Because they're, other than the teachers, the administrators is the closest person to our students, right? They're in the buildings, and they're the ones that are working with the teachers most frequently. And so this is an opportunity to build capacity with our teaching staff, but it's also an opportunity to build capacity with our administrative staff, our principals who work with our teachers on a day-to-day basis so that we can have an ongoing deepening of understanding as it relates to mathematical concepts.
And one last thing, too. Sorry.
Yeah. You have the last word.
Ooh, make it good. The other thing, too, I'm proud that CCS has co-created this vision of mathematics, right? And so this vision is not only going to lead and guide the work, but it's going to communicate what are our core beliefs about our students within CCS, right? And what are we committed to doing? So I think this is it's going to be a big shift, right? And shifting the mindsets of people is very difficult, but it's a challenge I think our team bore up to because, again, it's a justice issue. Our students deserve. And if we do not put the correct system and structures in place, like we have the opportunity to redo mathematics, we are going to continue to violently harm our kids. And I did use that word intentionally because right now it's educational neglect. If we don't provide them the opportunities to engage in mathematics in such a way that they build their confidence, that when they leave our space and they go to the workforce, they are equipped, they are prepared, and they are confident, right? And many of our Black and brown kids have been, I call it, labels have been tattooed on them. And it's kind of hard to brush off something that's tattooed on you. But I believe we have the opportunity to be agents of change to help our students navigate spaces more confidently by having the skills to navigate these unfamiliar spaces.
And the only thing you forgot, Doc, was, and I'm Dr. Tiffany Tynes, and I approve this message.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank
This
you.
has been an exceptional, enlightening conversation.
Thank you.
Definitely would love to have you guys back at some point. I'm sure Dr. Walker will come up with some other
Absolutely.
topic.
Yes, that's right.
So it's important to make sure that we guys got you here at the table. So
You can do a follow-up to implementation after year one.
Yeah, fantastic.
awesome. Well,
Thank you
I
for the
wanna
opportunity.
Thank you both, and I want to thank our viewing audience and our listeners for also joining us. You know what? I'm gonna hope we get this back on a regular basis. We've kind of just been all over the place
That's
this
right.
year,
That's
but
right.
we've been pushing through. So until next time, CCS family, we'll see you and talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.